Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dave Barber. I'm the Group Finance Director and run the enterprise business for NUS. I'm going to take you through today the financial performance for 15. To set the scene, I will take you through kind of what the five objectives are for the organisation. Is fits together and through each of the, where our income comes from, where it goes to, and each of the entities that we have within the group, and then at the end take a quick look to see if we are meeting our financial objectives. Let me start with what we're aiming for, and we've agreed with Audit and Risk Committee that we have primary aims. Part of our job is to balance those aims. So it's to achieve financial stability across the group, to reduce our reliance upon aviation fees, and to use parts of the group to generate funds and facilitate the appropriate investment, and really to try and get to a point where there is a balance of risk across the group, so that the areas that are asset rich, for example, we can use to support some of the other areas that aren't, but need to maintain that investment. So let me know how the group fits together. Really could arc in three streams of work. NUS UK is about campaigning and influence and student voice. We then have NUS UK is a guarantee of the members. So as a company limited by guarantee, there are no shareholders, there are only members, and the members are the student unions that are affiliated at any point in time. So student unions definitely are in effect the owners of NUS UK and everything that sits beneath it. And it sits on the right hand side, focus very much on membership and union development. So our NUS Student Union Charitable Services and NUS Charitable Services. And then on the left hand side you have the four organisations, NUS Services, NUS Holdings, Component, and NUS Media. I'll take you through a little bit later what each of those do and how they play their part in achieving the objectives for the group. Each of those entities has a particular strategy associated with them, line by line what those are. But looking at that, you can see that we are actually trying to achieve different things with different parts of the entities to create a balance of risk and investment and income growth and generation of cash across the group. I'll push these slides afterwards, so if anybody wants to have a look at that, that's great. Moving now on to the 2015 financial performance. As you can see from this chart, with pretty good revenue growth over the last 5 years. From the £14 million in 2010-11 to £20 million in 14-15. And why that revenue growth, services that we generate haven't always matched the revenue growth, partly because we have invested at different points in time in activities that will generate that income, because we've changed some accounting practices. 2014-15, we made overall group surplus of just under £600,000, which offsets the losses that were made in the 2 years prior to that. So, from financial performance on the face of it, but quite a varied picture of entities within 2014. So from left to right, NUS Services bring a reasonably good profit, Was it offset by NUS Media? We are investing heavily in NUS Media at this point in time. It's a conscious decision that we've made at audit and risks to do that. And you kind of costs incurred by media are greater than the revenues it's currently generating, but we generate significant revenues in the future. Disappointing and return a small loss on 4.5 million revenues. UK, a small surplus. Holdings makes a small loss. The charity, so that's the NUS Student Union Charitable Services, so in effect the UK charity made a surplus, as did the Scottish charity. We have consolidated numbers. And a slight apology really, because consolidated group numbers are quite difficult to read because of a mixture of GAAP and SORP accounting. So consolidation of all the 7 entities. And we show the group picture entities. The individual entities are all available there, if you're interested in those. And you can see what we've done is grown the income in terms of a group 5.5 million, which has resulted in contribution. We've managed to achieve a certain amount of cost savings so that we generated just under £500,000 last year, or just £500,000 last year. As part of the loss in the previous year was an accounting adjustment, exceptional item. We probably, in reality, our overheads were pretty much in line year on year. Ended up with a net asset position of 24.9 million. We're flagging that will change this time next year, adopt the new accounting practices to pension deficit. We have got a full disclosure on the pension deficit. We actually treat that as a long-term liability. Accounts for this time next year, that will be treated as a long-term liability. Broad position was as pleased that we managed the loss from the prior year while continuing to our revenues and continuing to invest in Union Cloud and their new forms of income streams. What I'm going to do now is take through analysis in terms of where the income comes from and where we are generation and where we're kind of spending that income. So if we go back to those 3 streams that we looked at the start, the £20 million of income, you can see the large income from the enterprise work. We get about 4 million in affiliation fees, which appear in student voice and influence. Sustainability practice, so the kind of greening of unions and universities in membership and union development. Break that the streams down further and start with student voice and influence. The vast majority, 66% of that income is from affiliation fees. Affiliation fees are at similar levels for the last 4 years. The income is largely made up of the income that we receive on the Ensley shares. Look at the sponsorship is from Ensley, so we continue to be into the support of the fires of Ensley. Next, most significant revenue streams in terms of conference and events, and that's really while we lose money on the conference and events in NUS UK, those are kind of delegate fees, observer fees, etc., that we negotiate with some of the events we run. And there's about 200k of grant-funded income, which I imagine will be over time as the economic climate has hardened and the government support of initiatives has reduced, and we don't anticipate that recurring. But we do anticipate completing the current projects we've got. So let's take you now then back picture in terms of the group, and then I'm going to take just remind that I'm going to talk about how the membership development income is broken down. So in the top section in terms of donations in yellow, donations to the charities, NUS Services and NUS UK. That's some of the affiliation fees being used to directly support membership development. Most of our externally funded projects are out of the two charities too. That includes like T-Set, Sparks, Wise Wales, all of which focus on quality education. Other projects are sustainability teams, so the Green Team generate about 1.3 million in revenue. The big chunk of conference and events at SU 2016, Lead and Change, and then there's some smaller work we do around people development. We fund this National Society of Apprentices and the Student Union Quality Mark. That gives you a reasonable picture of what we're doing there. Let me just remind you into the proportion of the overall income that makes up. I'll have a look now at income. The biggest single contributor to enterprise income is obviously NUS Extra, and we'll see that continue this year the same. We named the team or the purchasing consortium into trading support because that to reflect what objectives are, which is to support unions in terms of the trade they do. The 2.4 million there is a mixture of the levy that we charge on top of every purchase, as well as some of the promotional income that we generate. Building a merchandise, so that's a toner. The income from toner, which is our fair trade clothing company, was just over 1.25 million. This development includes sponsorship, advertising, media advertising, experiential marketing, a whole bunch of activities there for brands, about £1 million. Like these are income we collect for in the license fees that the customer pay, and also includes transaction fees, and we've seen transaction fees grow year on year quite considerably. Our team is the research that we do at Mansfield on behalf of commercial organisations, student unions, a small amount of income, publications, and advertising. So again, that gives you a really good picture of the activity that is involved in and where the industries come from. If we kind of pull all that together on the next slide, I hope to see a kind of picture of in its groups how that thing that we talked about on the first slide is analysed. Slightly more than 20 million because there's some.
It's to do with the way that the statutory accounts are prepared and the income from entities treated as other income isn't shown in the revenue.
That gross income as opposed to the way it's shown as that accounts. And that makes sense to people. What I'll do now is talk about where the money went. This is the expenditure to get to a contribution. So we talk about income, which is sometimes about as revenue. We've got our sales in effect or cost of activities, expenditure, and then give us a margin or a a contribution, and off that we take operating costs before we get to a profit. So this is in the middle in terms of a big chunk of our expenditure goes on enterprise, and a significant portion of that is in terms of the extra card. It costs quite a lot of money to generate those 7 million in sales of extra cards, a proportion of which is the commission that we pay to student unions. I paid over £2 million in commission to student unions last year. I have to turn the microphone. I think we can, but I got it closer to the microphone. I maybe try and talk a bit louder and see if that will help. So let me know if you need me to talk even louder. I'm going to move on then to distribution. You can see that if you take, starting with that 20 million, we then generate about 12.7 million of contribution. The student voice and influence, the majority of that is affiliation fees, most of that straight through. Membership development, unsurprisingly, think of that income is spent in that work. So sustainability work, for example, is largely run on a break-even basis because most of that work is with student unions. But the enterprise part of the business generates quite a considerable amount of contribution, which then goes towards funding the activities of the entire group and subsidising the running costs. Which leads me neatly onto what our running costs are. So your student voice and influence is at 6 million. The money, the rest of the contribution we get from union development just in terms of running costs, and the 5 million of overheads within enterprise. But that's the money to then help support the rest of the group. Taking now on to the highlights for each of the different entities. So I'll start with laying slides out in exactly the same way so that you can get top left a little picture of a subset of what the work is that's covered by that entity. Top right then is the actual performance for that entity, and then left is a kind of commentary in terms of how they're performing. NUS UK is where we run all of our campaigns from. It's what funds our full-time officers, the NEC, National Conference, all the Liberation Conferences, the Work of the Nations, and also in donation to the charities. We've got a slightly improved contribution. It also includes £1 million of donations to the two charities. So performance by NUS UK did offset the losses of last year. And if you look at net asset position, at £13 million of that £15 million is the shareholding. So it's not cash that we're sat with in terms of net assets. It's shares. And so we're doing a good job of the reserves that we lost from last year. To the next one, which is a picture of how that money is broken down. So actually, most of the income from the association fees is in terms of staff costs and staff costs primarily, and the campaign costs. £500,000 on government activities or democratic events, for example. Then infrastructure, which is premises, cost of running the premise in London, as well as that there's the donations to charities. Have a look at NUS Services. NUS Services consists of the Purchasing Consortium, also known as Trading Support, the NUS Extra Team, and some of the incomes they generate, the marketing activities, sponsorship. We're working with brands to get sponsorship, some of which goes to student unions and some of which is to our own assets. The team, as well as some of the infrastructure for the group. As you can see, reasonable financial performance in terms of growing some of that income, which has led to contribution growth, managed to keep overheads relatively static, so generate about £1.1 million, which really is quite important when you consider the amount of money that we're investing in NUS Media at the moment, and on a later slide. So, moving on to NUS Holdings. NUS Holdings does two things. It looks after all of our property, so it owns Gray's Inn Road, London, and the office that we have in Scotland, as well as the lease arrangements for each of the other offices. If you look at Gray's Inn Road in London, we have a story building, of which 3 stories are linked to other organisations. Generates about £250,000 in revenues for us a year, and also covers the rate. NUS also acts as the primary employer for the group. So, of the 230 odd people that are employed by the group, 100 are now employed by NUS Holdings. Pleased to report that the Inn Road is now fully let. Those leases are a 10-year lease and one of them is a 5-year lease. So, we've be steady income and sort of rentals from that. The overheads a little bit. That's probably because we some of that cost amongst the group more effectively than we did in the previous year. We're also looking for NUS Holdings to start making a profit on an annual basis, or making a surplus on an annual basis, so we can utilise some of the tax losses associated with it. Now, NUS Media. So, the primary activity of NUS Media is running Union Cloud. It also does some local advertising and some outdoor advertising. I absorbed a company called Youth Communications into NUS Media last year, but their numbers aren't. Communications run the local advertising activity that we did in the southwest, albeit that their numbers aren't consolidated in the group numbers. You see that we've steady revenue growth, but still nowhere near where we get it to. Our aspiration for NUS Media is that it's a multi-million-pound company in the relatively it's largely driven by depreciation, so we have invested very heavily in terms of the software platform for cloud, and gone from nothing to a kind of fully functional suite of tools in just under 3 years. I would expect the rate of investment to slow down a little bit going forwards. As we do that, the amount of depreciation we incur will increase. Expect us to be profitable next year or the year after at the point in time. But it's an important part of the work we're doing. So we do expect to continue to invest in it going forwards. Move on to then the point back owner. Probably a disappointing income. We had hoped that they would manage to grow their income. We had hoped that they would have grown it further. Tough trading conditions, a lot of price competition. We're seeing that in the market. We see that in High Street in lots of places. And student unions are no exception to that. Just over 100k last year. A function of heavy discounting by their competitors. Work to improve the brand, We're not in that flow through yet. And I imagine we will see another small loss by owner this year. But the management team is very focused on changing that for the year ahead. So let me through the performance of the two charities. So Student Union Charitable Services, small growth in income, mainly as a result of us increasing the donation to them. Distribution overheads increased slightly as the scope of the work they do has increased and remains steady at a kind of break-even level. That's really the objective of charity, is to break even each year. So the Scotland Charitable Services, they're very similar activities to the English charity, but up in Scotland. But the primary activity really there at this point in time is Sparks, which is equality in education right across the spectrum, and that represents at least 500,000 of that 800,000 revenues. Again, cost control there, so that we've broken even and make a difference in terms of education in Scotland. So let me just focus on the affiliation fee, because that's obviously important to our members. For every £1 that you give us, we generate a further £4 in income, and I've seen that from the slides before. In terms of our objective of reducing our reliance on affiliation fees up to kind of 1999, 2000, it was about 80%, if not near further 90% of NUS UK's income. We're below 20% now. Now, it's that actually we didn't operate as a group there, so that NUS UK income is quite on a like-for-like basis. We only see from the proportion of block grant, the near 10% of block grants, we're now just below 4% in terms of proportion of block grants. And one of the things we did last year was to offer a rebate to anybody that paid 5.2% of their affiliation fees. So we've further steps to control the amount of affiliation we take and make sure that the hardest, most hit by are did first. So if you then look at that as a kind of proportion, if you do that again, you can see that block grants have continued to rise over the last 4 years. Great news for our unions, because it means they've got more money to spend on the good work they're doing. At the same time, we've managed to keep the effect from affiliation fees net of availables and rebates to around the 4 million mark. And it is our intention to do so again this year. And I'd be surprised if we find anything different to conference good risk next year too. But finally, let me take you back to one of the first charts, which was our objectives and our 4 financial objectives. So, are we meeting our objectives? And we have a little bit of way to go to achieve financial stability. You hopefully have demonstrated that we are continuing to reduce our reliance on affiliate fees. We're spending funds within parts of the group and invest in those wisely. And we are trying our best to ensure a balance of risk across the group and integrate it from the wider activities. So, with that, I thank you for your patience. It's like I've been talking a long time. More than happy to open the phones up for any questions or for you to send us a chat if you have any questions. The participants are on mute, so if you want to ask a question, do make sure you come off mute before you so. If no questions, then I hope you've all enjoyed the presentation. I hope it met your expectations. The accounts for each of the entities within the group are available on our website. If you've got any questions that come out of this that you didn't want to ask in public, then feel free to email or Vicii .follow@nus.org.uk, and Vicii is V and one C. So at nus.org.uk, and both of us will be glad to answer any questions you've got. Thanks for your time.